Anyway, sorry, I digress. I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent there. I was on the train journey back from Plymouth, and I had to get off at Newton Abbot to change trains. And I went to look at one of those screens that sort of hangs on the roof of the platform that tells you what time your train's going to be, what platform it's going to go from, because I had to get a train to Torquay, how many hours late it's running. And as I was there staring at the screen, I saw this man walking towards me, pulling a suitcase. As he got nearer, I started to recognise him. And then he turned the case and he stood next to me, also staring at the screen. I was really excited because stood next to me on Newton Abbot Station, no word of a lie, was none other than Jonathan Dimbleby. Jonathan Dimbleby, he's staring at the screen. Jonathan Dimbleby, the son of Richard Dimbleby, the greatest broadcaster in the history of British broadcasting, the younger brother of David Dimbleby, the second greatest broadcaster in the history of broadcasting, Jonathan Dimbleby, who himself is the 9th greatest broadcaster. I won't tell you who the 3rd, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th are. I won't insult your intelligence. And there I was, stood next to him, and I had met him once before, about 6 years ago. I had a really good and interesting conversation with him about his book and TV series on Russia. Fascinating man, but there I am, stood next to him thinking, the Dimbleby brothers, I can now write my set. They're the brothers I need to write about. But as I was looking at him as well, I was thinking to myself, he's aged a bit. 6 years since I've seen him, and he has aged a bit. And that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I don't quite know why. But as I was going over the bridge at Newton Abbot Station to the other platform to catch my train, Jonathan Dimbleby was walking ahead of me, pulling his case over the bridge as well. And as I followed Jonathan Dimbleby over the bridge at Newton Abbot Station, the first line of a poem came into my head. And the first line of the poem was something like this. I saw Jonathan Dimbleby at Newton Abbot Station recently. Now you might be thinking, why did the word recently come into my head? Because I was actually following Jonathan Dimbleby at the time, so surely I would have said, I am looking at Jonathan Dimbleby now at Newton Abbot Station, but my subconscious or unconscious or whatever writes this stuff had actually anticipated that I'd probably be performing it in about 3 weeks' time at the Blue Walnut. And so if I said, I am looking at Jonathan Dimbleby now, you people in the Blue Walnut would think that Jonathan Dimbleby was sat somewhere in the Blue Walnut and all would start looking around trying to find Jonathan Dimbleby and would take no more notice of my poetry. The second line goes something like this. I wasn't overly thrilled. Because I've met him twice before. I actually only met him the once, when talking about his book about Russia. And I know that there is a mathematical difference between once and twice. And I know that 2 is 1 more than 1. I know that 2 is 1 doubled. I know that 2 is 100% more than 1. I think it's sufficiently accurate for poetry. Anyway, I thought I would share my poem. I scribbled the rest of the poem down while I was sat in the waiting room. I had 20 minutes to wait for my train, and Jonathan Dimbleby was walking up and down the platform pulling his case, hoping that people would recognise him. And I wrote this poem. I haven't really had a chance to learn it, so I shall have my piece of paper in front of me. But this is the piece of paper I wrote that day at Newton Abbot Station. Well, this is the poem. This is not the piece of paper. I saw Jonathan Dimbleby at Newton Abbot Station recently. I wasn't overly thrilled because I'd met him twice before, but I was pleasantly surprised. Although I do lament the fact that he's not as young as he used to be. You, Jonathan Dimbleby, are supposed to be the youngest of the Dimbleby brothers. You are the Dimbleby who is forbidden to grow old. How dare you, Jonathan Dimbleby... I'm following him as he goes up the station. How dare you, Jonathan Dimbleby, pass through your middle ages and start to exhibit the exterior signs of your latter years. For as long as you remained young, Jonathan Dimbleby, then I felt, as the youngest Dimbleby was meant to be, Jonathan Dimbleby, then I felt safe, Jonathan Dimbleby. I knew that my own demise and descent towards the dark, eternal abyss was just a different, distant happening. But now, Jonathan Dimbleby, you have spoilt my necessary delusion, and thanks to you, Jonathan Dimbleby, and your reluctance to still be young as you walk past me at Newton Abbot Station, Jonathan Dimbleby, I now know that one day I am going to die. I feel betrayed, Jonathan Dimbleby. I feel dismayed, Jonathan Dimbleby. I've been great day, Jonathan Dimbleby. What, your train's delayed, Jonathan Dimbleby? Serves you bloody well right. I saw Jonathan Dimbleby at Newton Abbot Station recently. Life had been going so well up to that point, but now there is nowhere left to hide. Thanks a bunch, Jonathan Dimbleby. You utter bastard, Jonathan Dimbleby. Thank you. And can I just say, I don't think that Jonathan Dimbleby is an utter bastard. I don't. You know, it's not his fault that through ageing he has made me aware of my own mortality. And I did find that I had real problems trying to then write a set about the Dimblebys, because you see, I had started to, through seeing Jonathan Dimbleby age, realise that my time was finite and I couldn't really concentrate on writing poetry. I had these really dark thoughts in my head all the time. And now, I'm basically here apologising to you for the fact that I haven't been able to write a set for tonight because of all these dark thoughts about my own mortality brought about by noticing that Jonathan Dimbleby had recently aged as he walked past me on Newton Abbot Station. So at least I think that it means that Nathan Filer won't be able to sue me like all the other poets have sued me, because I noticed Robert's filming it. He'll probably put it on YouTube and always get sued for nicking other poets' materials on YouTube. I got sued. I got letters from Matt Harvey's solicitors. I got letters from Byron Vincent's solicitors. I got letters from Robert Garnon's solicitors. I got letters from Joanna Hatfield's solicitors accusing me of nicking her material for tonight, even though I haven't heard it yet. I got letters from Liv Talk solicitors. I got letters from John Hegley's solicitors. I got letters from Pam Ayres's solicitor. I got letters from William Shakespeare's solicitors from Beyond the Grave. I got letters from Dante Alighieri's solicitors from the seventh play of Hell. I've got letters from Ovid and Virgil's solicitors. I got letters from Homer's solicitor. I have got letters from the solicitors of every poet that ever lived. Ever. I don't know why I bother.